anything. We have false prophets in that day just as we have in this day. You see, many times you find people run to conferences and they run to all these kind of revivals, and there's nothing wrong with conferences and revivals when the right people are ministering there. But see, sometimes you find that it's not good to go too many times to just any conference and any revivals, because you must understand there are false prophets in our time too. They'll sit there and prophesy to you just to get you to give a few more bucks. Sometimes they'll prophesy to tell you that I know your husband is coming, and they'll tell you that God have called you in the ministry. Now come on up with all the ministers and give $1,000. You see, it's not about trying to win you. It's not about trying to build you up in the ministry, but it's about the money thing. Not with all prophets and all preachers. There's some good preachers and there's some good prophets, but then there's also some false ones too. That's why you have to have a relationship with God. That's why you need to have the Holy Ghost for yourself, so you can be able to spiritually discern what is of God and what is not of God. These were the things that was going on in this day and time, and God saw his very own people being destroyed by the men of God who were supposedly been watching for their souls, but they had other things in mind. And here in verse number 29, he says the people of the land. It wasn't just the preachers and the prophets and the priests, but even the lay members were doing their own thing too in this day and time. He says the people of the land have used oppression and exercised robbery and have vexed the poor and the needy. He said, yea, they have oppressed the strangers wrongfully. Now, you see, in this day and time, and same way it was in that day, there were people that was all out for themselves. They never try to help the poor and the needy, but they're doing everything they can to build up a luxury life for themselves, but they don't care about the needs of others. You see, just as it was in that day and time, we have poor and needy in our day and time that many times need a helping hand and need us to be there to help them out and to give them a word from God. That's why we've made it our point to partnership with Feed Our Starving Children, because there's children that are hungry and we minister monthly to feed their needs. That's why we partnership up with Veep so we can feed the hungry here in this city and in surrounding cities. So we are partners with them because they feed those that are hungry and in need and can't pay their bills, and that's why we minister with them so that they can help the poor and the needy. We're also partners and ministering with Union Gospel, who's there to help feed those that are spiritually in need and financially as well too, because there are people that are in need of a helping hand. They need somewhere to sleep at night. Sometimes people get in trouble financially and need a helping hand to get out of that situation. So we've made ourselves partners. This church support these ministries monthly so that we can help the homeless and help those that are hungry and help those that need food and clothing, because God said the needy and the poor, we cannot forget them. But in that day, just as it is now, there's some people that are all out for themselves. They don't care about the state of their brothers and their sisters. They're just out to help themselves only. And that's what was going on in that day and time. And by the time we get to verse number 30, you find that God had enough of this stuff. God said, I've seen and I've seen the oppression of the people. I've seen my very own prophets starting to turn and not live by my word, and instead of helping the people, they are destroying the people. God said, I've seen my very own priest, whom I've called to oversee the people and to be there to minister to their needs. I've seen them turn, and they're not trying to help anymore, but they're hurting and destroying souls rather than saving souls. God said, I've also seen the rest of the people, the lay members, if you will, and the leaders. They're not caring about others. They're all in it for themselves. That's why I don't know why we have elections sometimes. I know it's important, and I make sure that I vote. But many times we get politicians in office, and they're all about themselves. Many of them don't care about the needy and those that are in need. They just care about themselves and lining their own pockets. And we go and elect these folks and thinking they're in for our best interest and having our best interest in mind. But many times they have a bigger agenda, and they don't care about the poor. Many times they're out for themselves. So we're seeing this kind of thing happening. We know BP have caused this big oil spill and this eruption of oil and all the oil that have been wasting in the Gulf and polluting the waters and killing animals, and people are suffering because many of their businesses was depending upon the Gulf of Mexico, and they're suffering now because they've lost their money-making jobs because of the oil spills. And we have big billionaire companies like BP. They say they're doing their best. Maybe they are, I don't know. But one thing for sure, I do understand that we have a lot of people that are greedy and in it for themselves, because our time is just like it was in Ezekiel days. But God says in verse number 30, God said, I looked around on earth, and he said, I was trying to find somebody, because God said, I need somebody to talk to me. You see, God have always used men to help him in his judgment of other men. He doesn't need it, or he doesn't have to have it, but he desires it, because justice always stands before God. And justice says we owe whatever crime we commit, there is a penalty for that crime. And so justice stands before God on a daily basis. And God needs somebody to come and stand before him, between him and justice. That's why the Bible said, God said, I sought for a man among all the men on earth, because God said, I need somebody to stand between me and justice, because justice have a valid point here. When we sin and commit crime, justice said we should pay for our sin and our crime. And God, being merciful as he is, he said, I need somebody to stand before me and between me and justice and say, Lord, don't kill them. But it cannot be just any person, but it has to be somebody that have a relationship with God. It has to be somebody that love the Lord with all their hearts. That's why it takes a holy man or holy woman. But God here said, I sought for a man. He was talking about a holy man, somebody that would make up the hedge and stand between me, so I won't destroy the people. But he said, I couldn't find anybody. You see, there was a time before Ezekiel day when God was faced with the same dilemma. He knew that Israel was sinning when Moses went up to Mount Sinai, and Israel decided while Moses was up there in the mountain getting the 10 commandments, Israel said they were going to forget about God. They had errands to make them a golden calf so they could worship this animal. And God told Moses while he was in the mountain, he said, Moses, don't talk to me now, because I've had enough of this people. people. He said they're stiff-necked and they don't love me. They made a golden calf and they're worshiping other animals instead of worshiping me, the one and true living God. And God said, Moses, I know you've been standing up for them, but this time, Moses, I want you to step aside. He said, leave me alone, Moses. But then Moses, he understood that if he don't stand in the gap, that Israel was going to be destroyed. You see, God needed somebody, although he didn't want it at that time, but it took somebody, a